In the ancient village of Umuaka, where the baobab trees touched the clouds, Chief Obinna ruled with wisdom and strength. His wife, Nena, was known throughout the land for her kindness and beauty. The gods smiled upon their home when they were blessed with 2 sons. Chike arrived first, crying loudly like a warrior announcing his presence. His grip was strong, and the midwives declared he would be a great fighter. 2 years later, Obi was born during a quiet dawn. Unlike his brother, he observed everything with calm, intelligent eyes. The village celebrated both births with festivals that lasted 7 days. Drums echoed across the hills, and people danced around bonfires. Everyone believed these boys would bring great honor to Umuaka. But on the night of Obi's naming ceremony, Chief Obinna pulled his wife aside. In the shadows of their hut, he whispered something that made Nena's face turn pale with fear. She began to weep, and her tears continued until the morning sun appeared. What secret could make a mother cry on her child's most joyful day? As the boys grew into young men, their differences became clear to everyone in Umuaka. Chike was tall and muscular, with arms that could bend iron and a voice that commanded attention. He loved wrestling, hunting, and practicing with wooden swords. Obi was shorter but quick-thinking. While Chike played war games, Obi studied the stars, learned to read ancient symbols, and listened carefully to the elders' stories. His questions were always thoughtful and wise. Chief Obinna trained Chike personally in the art of war. He taught him to throw spears, use shields, and lead warriors into battle. But when it came to Obi, the chief seemed distant and cold. He sent his younger son to study with the village wise men instead. "Why does father treat us so differently?" Obi asked his mother one evening as they prepared the evening meal. Nena's hands trembled as she stirred the soup. "Your father loves you both," she whispered, but her eyes wouldn't meet his. That night, Obi heard his mother praying desperately, "Great ancestors, may the truth never destroy my sons." What truth was she hiding? The annual festival of masks arrived with great excitement. This was when young men proved their worth to become full warriors of Umuaka. Colorful masks filled the village square, and the air smelled of roasted goat and palm wine. Chike performed the warrior's dance perfectly, spinning his spear above his head while the crowd cheered. Chief Obinna beamed with pride as he presented his elder son with the sacred warrior's spear, a symbol of honor passed down through generations. When Obi's turn came, he recited ancient poems and solved riddles that stumped even the oldest wise men. The crowd was impressed, but their applause seemed quieter. Instead of a warrior's spear, he received only a scholar's staff made of plain wood. Obi felt the difference like a sharp pain in his chest. Why wasn't he good enough for the warrior's spear? He was the chief's son too. As the festival continued, old man Emeka drank too much palm wine. Staggering toward Obi, he laughed loudly and said, "Boy, if only you knew the truth about yourself." Before anyone could stop him, Emeka whispered, "You are not who you think you are." What did the old man mean? Obi couldn't forget Emeka's strange words. For days, they echoed in his mind like thunder that wouldn't stop. He decided to search for answers in the family shrine, a sacred hut where his ancestor spirits were honored. Inside the dimly lit shrine, clay pots held offerings of kola nuts and palm oil. Wooden masks of dead chiefs watched from the walls with hollow eyes. Obi had been here many times before, but tonight, something felt different. Behind his grandfather's wooden mask, Obi's fingers found something hidden, a leather scroll tied with black cord. His heart pounded as he pulled it out. The scroll felt old and important, like it held dangerous secrets. Strange symbols were carved into the leather. At the top, he could make out one word that made his blood freeze: forbidden. Obi held the scroll close to the flickering candlelight. Should he open it? What if it contained the truth Emeka mentioned? His hands shook as he reached for the black cord. Just as his fingers touched the knot, footsteps approached the shrine. Someone was coming. Quickly, Obi hid the scroll in his wrapper. The door opened, and Chike entered, suspicion burning in his eyes. "What are you doing here so late, brother?" Chike's eyes narrowed as he looked around the shrine. "You've been acting strange lately, Obi. What are you hiding?" "Nothing," Obi lied, feeling the hidden scroll pressing against his side. "I came to pray to our ancestors. At midnight. With no offerings." Chike stepped closer, his warrior training making him notice every detail. "You're lying to me, brother." Their argument grew louder, echoing through the quiet village. Chike accused Obi of disrespecting their ancestors by sneaking around the sacred shrine. Obi defended himself, but guilt made his words weak. "You've always been jealous of me," Chike shouted. "Father chose me as the warrior because I'm stronger and braver. Maybe father doesn't know everything." Obi shot back, immediately regretting his words. The brothers stood face to face, anger crackling between them like lightning. They had never fought like this before. Suddenly, their mother appeared in the doorway, her wrapper hastily thrown over her sleeping clothes. "Stop this," she cried, stepping between them. "You are brothers. Nothing should ever divide you." But as Nena spoke, tears streamed down her face, and Obi wondered if she knew about the scroll. That night, Obi dreamed of a shadowy figure whispering, "The truth is your weapon, but weapons can cut both ways." The dream haunted Obi for 3 days. The shadowy figure had pointed toward the hills outside Umuaka, where ancient caves held the spirits of the first people. Despite the danger, Obi knew he had to go there. He left the village before dawn, when mist still covered the ground like ghostly fingers. The path to the caves was rocky and steep, used only by the bravest hunters. Wild animals lived in these hills, and some said evil spirits roamed there too. After walking for hours, Obi found the entrance to the Cave of Truth. Inside, water dripped constantly, and strange shadows danced on the walls. At the cave's heart sat a blind old woman, so ancient her skin looked like tree bark. "I've been waiting for you, child of 2 fathers," she said without looking up. Obi's heart stopped. "How do you know about me?" The seer laughed, a sound like dry leaves rustling. "The spirits whisper many secrets. Your blood is not fully in Obina's house. You carry the mark of another clan. One your father's people once called enemy." She pressed a small charm into Obi's palm. It felt warm, like it was alive. "This will open the hidden door," she whispered. "But beware, truth is a double-edged sword that cuts the one who wields it." What hidden door was she talking about? Back in Umuaka, Obi waited until his family slept before returning to the shrine. The old woman's charm felt heavy in his hand, pulsing with mysterious power. He approached the back wall where his great-grandfather's mask hung. As soon as the charm touched the wall, a section of wood slid away silently, revealing a hidden chamber. Obi's heart hammered as he stepped inside with his oil lamp. The secret room was filled with weapons, shields, and ceremonial items unlike anything in his family's collection. These belonged to warriors from a different clan, one with symbols Obi had never seen before. On a wooden shelf sat a small bundle wrapped in faded cloth. With trembling hands, Obi unwrapped it to find a baby's wrapper, beautifully sewn with gold thread. Embroidered across the front was a name that made him gasp, Obi. But this wasn't just any baby cloth, it bore the symbol of the Ikemba clan, the ancient enemies of his father's people. Wars had been fought between these clans for generations. How did his baby cloth end up in his family's shrine? Why was it hidden with enemy artifacts? As these questions swirled in his mind, Obi heard footsteps approaching the shrine again. Someone else was coming at this forbidden hour. This time, he couldn't hide fast enough. Nena stood in the shrine entrance, her face filled with sorrow as she saw Obi holding the baby cloth. She didn't seem surprised, only deeply sad, like she had been expecting this moment for years. "Mother," Obi whispered, "what does this mean?" With heavy steps, Nena entered the secret chamber. Her eyes moved over the hidden artifacts with the pain of old memories. She sat on a wooden stool and began to speak in a voice barely above a whisper. Before I married your father, I was promised to Ikena, chief of the Ikemba clan. He was brave and kind, and I loved him deeply. But war broke out between our peoples, and Ikena was killed in battle. Obi's grip tightened on the cloth. What are you saying, mother? I was already carrying his child, you, my son. When Obina's warriors found me alone and grieving, he chose mercy over revenge. He married me and promised to raise you as his own. The truth hit Obi like a thunderbolt. So Chike is my half-brother, and Chief Obina is not my real father. Nene nodded, tears flowing freely. I begged him to never tell you. I wanted you to grow up feeling loved and accepted. Just then, they heard a gasp from the entrance. Chike stood there, having heard every word. His face twisted with shock and anger. So you're not my brother at all, you're the son of our enemy. The shrine fell silent except for Nene's quiet sobbing. Chike stared at Obi as if seeing a stranger instead of the brother he had grown up with. All their shared memories, playing together, learning to swim, protecting each other from bullies, suddenly felt like lies. All these years, Chike said slowly, you've been living in my father's house under false pretenses. You're Ikemba blood, enemy blood. I'm still the same person, Obi pleaded. I'm still your brother in every way that matters. No. Chike's voice echoed off the shrine walls. A true brother shares the same blood, the same father, the same loyalty. You're nothing but a pretender. Nene tried to step between them. Please, my sons, he's not your son. Chike cut her off. He's the son of the man who killed our people. The hatred in Chike's eyes was like a physical blow. Obi felt their bond, built over 20 years, crumbling to dust in a single moment. From this day forward, Chike declared, I have no brother. And when I become chief, no son of Ikemba will inherit so much as a grain of sand from this land. As Chike stormed out of the shrine, Obi realized that the secret meant to protect them had destroyed them instead. How could their love turn to hatred so quickly? By morning, the secret had spread through the entire Umuaka. Whispered conversations stopped when Obi walked by. Some villagers stared at him with suspicion, while others looked at him with pity. Chike wasted no time claiming his position as the only true heir. He gathered the warriors and reminded them of all the Ikemba raids that had killed their fathers and grandfathers. How can we trust someone with enemy blood flowing through his veins? Chike asked them. What if he betrays us to our enemies someday? But not everyone agreed. Many villagers remembered Obi's wisdom and kindness. Old teacher Obioma spoke up for him, saying, a man should be judged by his actions, not his bloodline. The village market became a place of arguments. Families who had been friends for generations now took different sides. Some supported Chike's claim to pure blood and legitimate inheritance. Others defended Obi's right to be treated as Chief Obina's son. Even the children began choosing sides, playing war games that reflected their parents' arguments. Chief Obina watched his village tear itself apart, looking older and more tired each day. Finally, the Council of Elders demanded a meeting. This division must end, announced Elder Nkemka. We will hold a trial to determine the truth once and for all. But what kind of trial could heal such deep wounds? The entire village gathered at the sacred Oku River, where the water spirits were said to reveal hidden truths. Ancient traditions demanded that disputes be settled here under the watchful eyes of the ancestors. Elder Nkemka explained the ritual. Both young men will cut their palms and let their blood drip into the river. The spirits will show us who truly belongs to this land. A crowd of hundreds pressed close to the riverbank. Children climbed trees for better views while elders sat on carved stools, their faces grave with the weight of tradition. Chike stepped forward first, his head held high with confidence. Using a ceremonial knife, he made a shallow cut across his palm. Bright red blood dripped into the clear water, spreading like tiny clouds. The water remained calm and normal. Now it was Obi's turn. His hands shook as he took the knife. He looked at his mother's tearful face, then at Chike's hateful glare, before making his cut. As Obi's blood touched the water, something extraordinary happened. The entire river began to bubble and churn violently, as if it were boiling. Steam rose from the surface, and the water turned dark red. The crowd gasped and stepped back in fear. What did this supernatural sign mean? Suddenly, a voice echoed from the depths of the river itself. The voice from the river was deep and ancient, like thunder rolling across the earth. Everyone fell to their knees in terror and awe as the spirit spoke. I am the guardian of this sacred water, keeper of truth and justice. I have watched over this land since the first people arrived. The churning water formed shapes, images of warriors fighting, villages burning, and families weeping. The spirit was showing them the history of the endless war between the clans. One child stands here born of this soil, raised by its traditions. The other carries the blood of both clans, enemy and friend united in his veins. Both are destined to lead, but never together. Obi felt the weight of destiny settling on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. The spirit wasn't finished. The land has suffered too long from hatred between brothers. But healing requires sacrifice. One must fall for the other to rise. One must live for peace to return. Elder Nkemka found his voice first. Great Spirit, which one must go? The water swirled faster, creating a whirlpool that reflected the faces of both young men. That choice belongs to them. But know this, the one who stays will rule a divided people. The one who leaves will find his true destiny elsewhere. As the spirit's presence faded, the water returned to normal. But its prophecy hung over them like storm clouds. Which brother would sacrifice himself for peace? Instead of bringing peace, the spirit's prophecy only made things worse. Chike became convinced that he was meant to rule, and that Obi must be the one to leave. But Obi's supporters argued that the prophecy gave no clear answer. For 3 days, heated arguments filled the village. Then Chike made a terrible decision. If words couldn't solve this problem, perhaps weapons could. On the 4th night, the war drums of Umuaka sounded for the first time in 20 years. Their deep, rhythmic beating echoed across the hills, calling all warriors together. Chike stood in the village center, his father's spear gleaming in the firelight. I call upon every loyal warrior of Umuaka, he shouted. Will you follow the true son of Chief Obina, or will you let enemy blood pollute our leadership? About half the village's warriors joined Chike, forming a circle around him with their weapons raised. They chanted war songs and beat their shields with their spears. But Obi's supporters didn't stay quiet. Led by Elder Obioma and several young warriors who valued wisdom over bloodline, they formed their own group. They carried fewer weapons, believing that talking was better than fighting. Chief Obina watched from his hut, too heartbroken to stop what was happening. His 2 sons were about to tear apart everything he had built. As both sides prepared for battle, storm clouds gathered overhead. Even the sky seemed angry about what was coming. Dawn came grey and threatening as the 2 groups faced each other in the village square. What had been a place of festivals and celebrations was now a battlefield where brothers prepared to fight. Chike wore his warrior's armor and carried his father's blessed spear. His followers spread out behind him, their faces painted with war markings. They beat their drums and chanted songs of victory. Obi had tried one last time to avoid fighting, but Chike refused to listen. Now he stood with his smaller group of supporters, holding only a simple wooden shield and iron sword. His charm from the cave spirit glowed faintly against his chest. This is your last chance to live peacefully, Chike called across the square. Go back to your father's people and never return. This is my home too, Obi replied sadly. I won't be driven away by hatred. The first spear was thrown, and suddenly the battle began. Shields crashed against shields, swords rang against swords, and the dust of Umuaka was mixed with blood. Chike fought like a man possessed, cutting through Obi's defenders to reach his half-brother. When they finally faced each other, their weapons locked together, neither able to overcome the other. Just as Chike raised his spear for a killing blow, Obi's charm burst into brilliant light. What power did the cave spirit give him? The charm's light was so bright that everyone had to shield their eyes. From within that blinding glow came the voices of all the ancestors, chiefs and warriors from both clans who had died in the endless wars. "Stop," they commanded in unison. "Blood must not spill blood." Every warrior froze where they stood, weapons hanging loose in their hands. The ghostly figures of dead chiefs appeared in the light, their faces showing the pain of watching their children continue the cycle of hatred. Among them stood Ikena, Obi's birth father, and Chief Obina's own father. The two dead leaders looked at their sons with sorrow. "We fought and died for nothing," Ikena's spirit said. "Our wars brought only pain and loss. Must our children repeat our mistakes?" Chike stared at the ghostly figures, his spear trembling in his grip. For a moment, doubt flickered in his eyes. The ancestors were asking for peace. But pride and anger had grown too strong in his heart. He spat on the ground and raised his weapon again. "I don't care what the dead say," he shouted. "I'll never accept a traitor as my brother." The ancestor spirits faded with expressions of deep sadness. Their children had learned nothing from their sacrifices. As the ghostly light disappeared, an even more terrible sound filled the air, a scream of pure anguish. Nena had been watching the battle from the edge of the square, her heart breaking as her two sons tried to kill each other. When the ancestors' warning failed to stop them, she knew only one thing could prevent this tragedy. With a cry of desperation, she ran into the middle of the battlefield just as Chike and Obi raised their weapons for the final strike. And the heat of battle, thrust his spear forward without thinking. The weapon meant for Obi found a different target. Nena gasped as the spear pierced her chest. She looked down at the blood spreading across her wrapper, then up at Chike's horrified face. The anger drained from his eyes, replaced by shock and horror. "Mother!" Both brothers cried at the same time, catching her as she fell. With her last breath, Nena reached up to touch both their faces. "My sons," she whispered, "only love can heal this land. Promise me, promise you'll find peace." As their mother died in their arms, both young men realized that their hatred had cost them the person they loved most. But was it too late to keep her final wish? The entire village fell silent as Nena breathed her last breath. Even the wind seemed to stop blowing out of respect for the woman who had tried to keep her family together. Obi held his mother's hand and wept openly, his tears falling on her peaceful face. All his anger melted away, replaced by crushing grief. The secret that had started this war no longer seemed important. Chike stared at the bloody spear in his hands, the same spear his father had given him as a symbol of honor. Now it was stained with his mother's blood. He dropped it and fell to his knees, shaking with guilt and horror. The warriors from both sides put down their weapons. Many of them were crying too. They had all loved Nena, who had been like a mother to the entire village. Elder Kemka stepped forward, his voice heavy with sadness. "This is what hatred brings us, the death of innocence and love. The council declares that neither of you is fit to rule Umuaka." The crowd murmured in agreement. How could they follow leaders whose war had killed the kindest woman in the village? "One of you must leave," the elder continued. "This land cannot heal until the cause of division is removed." Chike and Obi looked at each other across their mother's body. For the first time since learning the truth, they saw each other clearly, not as enemies, but as two broken young men who had lost everything to pride and hatred. Who would make the ultimate sacrifice? As the sun set on the darkest day in Umuaka's history, Obi made his choice. He gently closed his mother's eyes and stood up, his heart heavy but his mind clear. "I will go," he announced to the gathered crowd. If my presence brings division, then my absence must bring peace. Chike looked up in surprise. Obi, you don't have to. Yes, I do, Obi interrupted gently. Mother died asking for peace. This is the only way to honor her memory. The next morning, Obi prepared to leave the only home he had ever known. He packed only basic supplies, some food, water, his scholar staff, and the charm from the cave spirit. Everything else belonged to his past life. Many villagers came to say goodbye, especially those who had supported him. Elder Obioma blessed him and whispered, "Wisdom always finds a way to flourish, even in foreign soil." Chike stood apart from the crowd, guilt and regret written on his face. As Obi walked toward the village gate, his half-brother finally found his voice. "Obi," he called out. "I'm sorry. I was wrong." Obi turned back one last time. "Take care of our people, brother. And remember, hatred is a poison that destroys the one who drinks it." As Obi disappeared into the forest, many villagers whispered that Umuaka had lost its best future leader. Chike became chief, but he ruled a people who never forgot the price of his pride. The land prospered, but not fully. For peace built on exile is not the same as peace built on forgiveness. This ancient story teaches us that family secrets, when hidden with good intentions, can cause more harm than the truth itself. Nena thought she was protecting her sons by hiding Obi's parentage, but secrets have a way of surfacing at the worst possible times. The tale also shows us how quickly love can turn to hatred when pride and fear take control of our hearts. Chike and Obi had been loving brothers for 20 years, but one revelation destroyed their bond because they let anger guide their actions instead of wisdom. Most importantly, this story reminds us that our bloodline doesn't define our character. Obi proved through his actions that he was worthy of love and respect, regardless of who his birth father was. In our schools, families, and communities today, we must judge people by their deeds, not their background. The tragedy of Nena's death shows us that when family members fight, innocent people always suffer the most. Every argument between siblings, every bitter word spoken in anger, affects the whole family. But perhaps the greatest lesson is about the power of forgiveness and sacrifice. Obi's choice to live for the sake of peace showed true leadership. Sometimes the strongest thing we can do is walk away from a fight. In our modern world, we still see families torn apart by secrets, pride, and old grudges. This tale reminds us that healing always requires someone to take the first step toward peace, even when it costs them everything.